A hip-hop activist speaks out on social issues by Solomon Kamajan. A hip-hop activist speaks out on social issues by Solomon Kamajan is a book that uncompromisingly discusses social issues the U.S. corporate media often ignore. The book also delves into myriad solutions to these social issues. The book is a collection of essays that offers readers brutally honest analysis and commentary regarding social injustices often ignored by mainstream America. It is a book written by a golden era hip-hop inspired activist, Solomon Kamajan. My motivation for writing A Hip-Hop Activist Speaks Out on Social Issues was to use it as a launching pad, as a platform to discuss a range of social injustices that are unfortunately quite often ignored by U.S. corporate media, by U.S. educational systems, and just the U.S. so-called mainstream in general. I also wanted to detail often untaught history, things like Columbus, to discuss Christopher Columbus. You know, within most U.S. mainstream educational systems, Christopher Columbus and the narrative of that man's life are discussed as if he was a savior, as if he was a hero, as if he was something to be rejoiced and celebrated. And based on the fact that still to this day in 2012, Christopher Columbus has a federal holiday named in his honor, it means that more and more books, more and more perspectives, like A Hip-Hop Activist Speaks Out on Social Issues, need to be put out there. There are books that have already been written that discuss that, but those books are marginalized and pushed into the underground. And the same way this book probably will as well, I still wanted to make sure that I made my small contribution in detailing little known facts about individuals and history like Christopher Columbus, that he was a rapist, he was a mutilator, he was a genocider, and that he is not deserving of any kind of federal holiday whatsoever. And I believe in the mantra that if we don't speak out on social issues, we become a part of the problem. It was Dr. King, to paraphrase what he said, is that, you know, those of us that know about evil that is going on, if we continue to remain silent about various evil that is going on, we soon become culpable for that same evil. We become culpable as those that are the perpetrators of that evil. And so I don't ever want my silence to be a part of the problem. And so that is why I wrote A Hip-Hop Activist Speaks Out on Social Issues. Some of the issues discussed within A Hip-Hop Activist Speaks Out on Social Issues are things like institutional racism. Today in 2012, the average black person gets 59 cents to 60 cents for every dollar that a white person gets. For every dollar of household wealth that a white family controls, a black family controls a dime. A Latino family controls 12 to 13 cents. That is institutional racism. Institutional racism is what allows police brutality in communities of color to continue to go on unchecked, where we see even 7-year-old black girls in Detroit, Michigan, like Ayanna Stanley Jones, who was gunned down in 2010 by a police officer in her home, and nothing ever happened to that police officer in terms of him seeing justice, him doing any kind of time whatsoever for the murder that he committed of that 7-year-old black girl. It's Sean Bell, it's Amadou Diallo, it's Adolph Grimes, it's Oscar Grant. We can go on and on. Those are all police brutality in black and brown communities is an example of institutional racism, white supremacy. Imperialism is something that's also discussed within this book. It discusses the U.S. role as an imperial power in 2012 that is waging war in places like Pakistan, Iraq, Afghanistan, and how the U.S. is now trying to foment and build up to a war with Syria, with Iran, and often using information that is limited at best. Capitalism and social inequity. Social justice is a theme that is threaded throughout this book. A Hip-Hop Activist Speaks Out on Social Issues. Police brutality, as I discussed before, is throughout the book. Often untaught history. The corporate media influence on hip-hop. Why in 2012 especially since the Telecom Act of 1996 and the end of the golden era of hip-hop, when more and more large corporations, mostly white corporations, got a hold of hip-hop culture. They said, no, we're not going to allow black and brown hip-hop artists to have a platform anymore to talk about social issues within this revolutionary medium known as hip-hop music, as well as the accompanying culture that goes along with it. And so that is why in 2012 we see images of black men and brown men and black women and brown women, people of color, that should be routinely seen as racist, should be routinely seen as stereotypically racist and vile imagery. But we don't see, many of us don't see those stereotypical and racist images in what is put forth on channels like BET, MTV, VH1, otherwise known as the Viacom collective of television channels, as well as the radio stations, that are from coast to coast, owned by these large corporations. We don't see them. Many of us don't see them as racist imagery because the images have been popularized. They've been popularized, but they're no different than the Stambo and Step and Fetch It images of the 20s and 30s and before. The corporate influence on U.S. electoral politics is discussed within this book. Why in 2012 we continue to see a two-party, almost dictatorship, if you will, with the Democrats and Republicans, and not too much difference separating the two parties, especially when it comes to foreign policy and war. Democrats support wars, and Democratic presidents support wars just as their Republican counterparts do. The corporate influence, the money, the tens and tens of millions of dollars of lobbyist money that goes into Capitol Hill every single year plays a major influence in terms of the defense contractors, as well as the reason why we don't have universal health care. The health insurance lobby puts a lot of money into the pockets and coffers of congressmen and women and senators every single year, as well as even the president. And that's why in 2012, unfortunately, we see 40 to 44,000 Americans dying each year simply based on the fact that they do not have access to health insurance. This is a social injustice. It is wrong, and I address this within A Hip Hop Activist Speaks Out on Social Issues as well. For more information on where you can buy A Hip Hop Activist Speaks Out on Social Issues, please go to www.solomoncomijan.com. That's www.solomoncomision.com. You can go to Ex Libris, you can go to Amazon.com, and you can find the book there. And for any media inquiries, please go to scmbconsulting.com. Please email scmbconsulting.com. Thank you. My name is Solomon Comijan, and I'm the author of A Hip Hop Activist Speaks Out on Social Issues. For more information on the book or the work that I do, please visit www.solomoncomijan.com. Your support of this book project is greatly appreciated, and allows me to produce and disseminate more work. Being an independent author, the support that I get from community members, domestically and abroad, will go a long way towards helping me continue to produce much more work. But most importantly, I would say that we all have been influenced by a book at some point of our lives, whether it's the autobiography of Malcolm X, whether it's a range of books written by the likes of John Henrik Clarke or J.A. Rogers. We understand the influence that books play on our life and how they influence us to go on to do greater things, how they influence us by providing us information that wasn't readily provided to us, how that information inspires us to get more involved civically and inspires us to do more and more activist work for the betterment of society. This book is my small contribution to the many books that have been written before my time. My book is a result of so many books that I've read that have inspired me. It's a collection of essays that offers readers, as I said before, brutally honest analysis and commentary that is routinely and methodically ignored by the mainstream corporate media. So I appreciate your support, and I don't think that you'll be disappointed with this book if you decide to purchase it. Thank you so much.